You're welcome to today's episode of Chronicles of a Nigerian Woman. My name is Fagbeja, and today I'll be reading Deedee's story. This cycle ends with me. These are my thoughts as I share my story today. My mom had me as a teenager at the age of 19. My grandmother mostly took care of me while my mom went to school. When she eventually got married at the age of 26, the man she married insisted that I could not live with them. She chose the marriage and left me with my grandmother, who continued to care for me with everything she had. But she died when I was 12. I was devastated, but my broken heart could not have imagined the kind of trauma I was about to experience. After my grandmother passed on, I went to live with my mom, of course, but it was hell. I was a maid in my mother's house. I went to a public school because her husband refused to pay my school fees, even though he was very comfortable. He was a banker. My mom had a tailoring business and said the public school was all she could afford. I walked 30 minutes to school every day and 30 minutes back, while a driver took my two half-siblings to school. I was not allowed to eat with them or to watch TV or to have any such interactions with them. I slept downstairs on a mattress in the sitting room while everyone else had bedrooms upstairs. I was 8 years older than the first of the other kids, but they called me by name. This would not have been a problem, but my mom enforced the use of sister for my younger sister, even though she was very young and the gap between her and the boy was only 2 years. I was blamed for everything that happened to them and punished at every opportunity. Many times, I could not believe that this woman was my mother. I had very few clothes that she made from the remnants of material from her shop. She never bought me anything, and even when I started my periods at the age of 13, she gave me pieces of cloth from her shop to use. I woke up first and slept long after everyone else in the house. I was 14 when the next phase of my trouble started. My mom and her husband started having frequent quarrels, and every time this happened, I was not allowed to sleep in the house. He would call me all sorts of names and throw my bags out of the house. Sometimes I would sleep on the balcony, and in the morning I would be called in to do my duties before school, as though nothing had happened before. After a while, my mom started to blame me as the cause of the problems between her and her husband. Then one day, she said I had to leave to go and live with her older sister in Ife. My aunt visited us often in Ibadan, and though we didn't have a close relationship, she often gave me money, and her children were nice to me, so I was relieved. When I got to my auntie's house, however, my situation worsened. Her children were nice and sympathetic to me, but she used me as her maid. I missed school so often because of the chores I had to complete, and whenever I offended her, I would not be given a meal. She had a daughter who was 12 and a son who was 10. Sometimes they would slip biscuits to me behind their mother's back. One of the neighbors in the house where we stayed had a 19-year-old son who was seeking admission to the university and was often home during the day. He was really nice to me. He would give me food from their house when my auntie went to work, help me with some of my chores, and he listened to me. I got pregnant for him when I was 17. He was 21 at this time and a student of OAU Ife, so he lived at home. He didn't deny it, but he wasn't prepared for a baby. I didn't even know I was pregnant until I was 4 months gone. The doctor she took me to refused an abortion because it was too dangerous. She sent me back to my mom, who was now separated from her husband. Once the baby was 6 months old, my mom kicked me out. I had nowhere to go, so I wandered around for a while until I walked into a white garment church. I explained myself to the prophet in charge, and he allowed me to stay on the church grounds. I assisted with cleaning the premises and other menial chores in return for 1 meal a day and a place to lay my head. I stayed there for 1 year. Church members sometimes gave me money or used clothes for my baby. I was determined to make a life for myself and my child because I could not bear for her to go through the trauma that I had experienced. I started learning to make hair at a nearby salon while I stayed in the church. I learned by assisting the woman for free. She was quite accommodating and taught me a lot, although I helped her with jobs and often declined to collect stipends because I appreciated what she was doing for me. By the time I left the church, I had become quite good at making hair, and I served quite a number of the church members, especially making their children's hair. I was able to save up enough, and I rented a room in the neighborhood so that I could maintain my clientele. With time, I started making money from training apprentices as well, and I was also able to increase my clientele while the apprentices served me. After about 3 years of doing this, at the age of 23, I wrote JAMB and WAEC exams, and I got admitted to the University of Ibadan. I made hair to see myself through school. I graduated at the age of 28, and my daughter was 10. I met a guy during my youth service who was serious about marrying me, even after I made a point to mention my daughter to anybody who showed interest in a relationship. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because his family was against it. After my service year, I got a good job in a telecoms company. I put my daughter in a boarding school and she's doing great. I am 35 now. I'm making progress in my HR career. I keep doing a lot of personal and professional development. I have tried to work past the hurt of the past by mending fences with my mom, even though we're not close. I've also had quite a few love interests, but most of them leave when I mention that I have a child. I will not compromise on my stand because I know firsthand how easily things can go wrong for my daughter. I am willing to make this sacrifice until she can take care of herself. She is growing every day into a strong and confident young woman, and I am so proud of her. I have plenty to say about my experiences as a single mother in Nigeria, but that is for another day. Please share your thoughts about Deedee's story in the comment section. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my stories.